He's a former two-term Texas state representative, former Texas Freedom Caucus chairman, and a retired Fort Worth PD officer, continuing his crusade to defend and protect the Constitution for we the people. Your host, Mike Lang.
Let's take a look at the sheriff's race tonight from the Hood County Republican Forum. We've got three people running for sheriff here in Hood County. We have Johnny Rose, who used to work for Hood County Sheriff's Department. He's been in law enforcement for 33 years. We have Roger Deeds, the incumbent, who's been there for 4 terms, so 16 plus years. And we have Scott London, who's been a sheriff in New Mexico and in law enforcement for 23 years. Now, please go to the Republican site on Facebook and look at the forum, look at all the questions. We're just going to go over a few here tonight and see what you think about it, see what you think about each individual candidate that is running, what they said, and how they acted, and their body language. We've been over all that before. But please take a look at it and, choose for yourself the best candidate. In the meantime, let's look at the candidates and go over some of their answers to the questions and some of the things that weren't even mentioned at the whole forum that, in my opinion, should have been mentioned. Let's first look at the opening on Johnny Rose.
I'm Johnny Rose, and I've been a Texas peace officer for 33 years. I'm married to my wife, Lucinda. We have 7 kids. And I want to ask a question. Can government ever be good without God? Can our schools ever be good without God? And I say no. Because where are our God's Davids and Daniels and Joshua's and Caleb's? Where are those people at? Ladies, where are the Esthers and Deborahs? Where are the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's? Those 3 boys, they had to be from Texas because they were very brave against the king. It's time to get God back in government, okay? Because it'll never be good if we don't. And so that's all I'm going to say right now.
So Johnny Rose, once again, he says he's been in law enforcement for 33 years or plus. And his question was, can government be good without God? Schools, things like that. And he comes at it from a different perspective than many as far as God in government, God in schools, things like that. And yes, God has to be in your life. I agree with that 100%. Let's go on and look at part of Roger Deeds' opening. Now, all this was done by the Republican Party, and they drew names and they went on the ballot however they were. So it's in no specific order. And then the next candidate answers the question first, and then they go down the line. So let's look at Roger Deeds. His opening. Now, remember, Roger Deeds has been there for 16 plus years, and he's had prior experience before that in fire-related departments.
I'm Roger Deeds. I've been your sheriff for 4 terms. Ran for it because I loved helping people. Prior to that, I was a fireman, fire chief, EMT, got into law enforcement so I could do a better job at helping families. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but in the end, you're doing better than just an EMT or a fireman can do. Being the sheriff for 4 terms now, almost working on my 16th year. I do this for the people. I don't do it for me. I love what I do. We listen to people and what they need and what we're doing. We try to adjust things and keep moving forward. You can't step backward. You're going to keep on moving forward. We've changed up things. We started out, I didn't have that many mental calls, people in distress, but then now we've got a bunch every day, 7 days a week it seems like. So I've created a mental health unit to help people. We've got a street crimes unit that helps knock the drugs out of Hood County and does other things too. So we're working hard to try to serve and protect you and keep you safe.
So in Roger Deeds' opening statement, now Roger is the current sheriff of Hood County and has been, like he said, for 4 terms, 16 years. He's in it for helping people, not himself. He's doing it for the people. He does it to serve and protect, and that will be a theme you'll hear from Roger time and time again. Serve and protect for the safety of the citizens. And I agree, serve and protect. It used to be, I was in law enforcement. It used to be on the cars, the car doors, serve and protect, safety of the citizens. And I get all that. But at some point, you've got to look at what's been managed and what's been mismanaged in the department, in the Hood County Sheriff's Department. And as he went on, he talked about the mental health calls. He's put together a mental health unit. There's a street crimes unit for drugs in the area, and that they've been working on that. Well, you would think in his opening, or any sheriff that's been there for 16 years, they would talk about the crime statistics in Hood County, how they've gone down over the years, what's been more prevalent, whether it's been burglaries, thefts, robberies, homicides, rapes, whatever it may be. But there was nothing in his opening about the criminal statistics in Hood County, whether it's, drugs up and down, what is going on in Hood County in the sheriff's department that's quantifiable by looking at those statistics, but nothing was said. So let's move along to Scott London, who's running for sheriff.
So I'm Scott London, and I did retire as sheriff in Eddy County, New Mexico, and I now have 23 years of diverse police experience, which gives me the leadership to make the sheriff's office something that the community can count on and the employees can be proud to work for. As a police instructor with over 3,000 hours of criminal justice training, I know the importance of training, and I'll ensure that the staff is trained to adequately meet your needs. They will take on your cases, the big ones and the little ones. I'm also the fiscal conservative. With overwhelmed budgets these days, I'm the guy that I'm not going to ask for predictable expenditures outside the budget process. I'm also the Constitution guy. I've been teaching on the Constitution here in Hood County for the last 3 years. I did a segment on the Texas Constitution, but I've been sharing the Constitution for the last almost 10 years now, because we in law enforcement, well, like all elected officials, we take an oath to the Constitution. But unfortunately, nobody ever teaches us what that means. For many, many years, I was an ignorant but very sincere oath taker until I actually started studying that document that we're sworn to uphold. And so not only am I the Constitution guy, but I'll ensure that the deputies understand their oath to the Constitution, what that means, and what it looks like to actually protect and preserve, protect, and defend your rights and liberties. I'm Scott London, Hood County Sheriff.
So Scott gets right into it and says, he was a sheriff in New Mexico for a while. He's got 23 years of diverse experience in police work. And he talks about the Constitution and following the Constitution and the deputies following the Constitution and what it really means for you to have a constitutional Hood County sheriff. He also talks about a fiscally conservative budget. And he was the only one that spoke about the budget, which in my mind, it goes with the criminal stats, the crime stats, is you talk about your budget, what you've done with it, and how you've grown with the budget and what you need in your budget, how you've helped save money for the taxpayers. But, Scott is going after these issues, and he's talking about the budget and, what he's going to do with the budget, as opposed to Roger just saying serve and protect, serve and protect, serve and protect. And that's the theme. And you get your people again once, in the front row clapping at serve and protect, serve and protect. I want to know more than serve and protect. So Scott London kind of opens it up for people to talk about it. As we go into the other questions, one of the ones that was asked was, what do you think the important role is for the Hood County Sheriff's Department, and what makes you qualified? So basically, hey, what's the role of the Hood County Sheriff? And the major role, the number one role of the Hood County Sheriff, or any sheriff in the 254 counties here in Texas, is the jail. They're responsible for the jail of the county. So, let's listen to Roger's reply to this question, because he was the first one up.
Being able to serve and protect the citizens, following the Constitution. We follow the Constitution every day. Writing tickets, you use part of the Constitution. Protecting everybody's rights, we're going to keep on doing that. I've done it since day one. Needs to be somebody with integrity, intelligence, and knowing the job, like I've been in there for 4 terms. I've been a peace officer since '98, so we're going to keep on working hard to get the job done, serve and protect the citizens.
So this is Roger Deeds talking about the most important role in Hood County Sheriff. And once again, he said he's been there for 4 terms, 16 years. And for a sheriff that's been in there for 16 years, now I like Roger. Roger's a good guy, don't get me wrong. But we're talking about the sheriff of Hood County that's been there for 16 years. And he doesn't mention the jail. He doesn't mention anything going on in the street as far as deputies and his hierarchy and the command. So the most important role in Hood County Sheriff's to serve and protect, to serve and protect, to serve and to protect. You've got to get beyond the word serve and protect and move into the substance of what you're going to do, what you've done, and what is the most important role. Integrity, fine, that's good. Intelligence, that's good. But explain to me the crime stats, what you've done. Explain to me about the jail, your main role as a Hood County Sheriff. And so he took that question and he could have hit it, a grand slam, but the same thing. Serve and protect, serve and protect, serve and protect. So let's get away from that, Roger, and tell us about your stats. Tell us about the jail. Tell us about the main things in your department that you've been there for 16 years. Let's move on to Scott London. He had the next answer.
So one of my favorite quotes was from the Danbury Baptist Association to President Thomas Jefferson, where they said, "The legitimate power of civil government extends no further than to punish the man who works ill against his neighbor." That's what we do in law enforcement. And so we need a sheriff who understands all the different facets of law enforcement, understands the importance of training to make sure that the staff is adequately trained, and that they're trained mentors who managed to do the job and do it well. And then, once again, that Constitution thing keeps coming up. We need to understand that document. We need to train on it. We need to actually talk about it and discuss what it looks like to defend your rights and liberty. Because, yes, when we're making an arrest, when we're making a seizure, all these things do play into the Constitution, so we need to understand all of that. And we need somebody with the leadership to improve the morale. I mean, that may not be one of those things that we think a whole lot of, but when we have improved morale, we have lower turnover. These are important things for the sheriff, and these are important things we should be looking for. When I was a sheriff in New Mexico, amongst the other things that I was able to accomplish there, we were able to close 2 cold case homicides in 1 term as sheriff. And that was a result of the overhaul that we did within the detective division while I was the sheriff there. And so if these are things that you're looking for, I'd ask you vote for Scott London for Hood County Sheriff.
Scott does a pretty good job. He talks about knowing all the facets of law enforcement. So he didn't get into the jail, but he got into training and how the deputies should be trained. And he got into the Constitution. And, what I like to hear is defend the rights and liberties of the people. And Scott gets it. He gets the idea of, the government's here to protect the citizens. It's not the other way around. So Scott had a good talk, and I do believe, and I think everybody can say, yes, Scott is a constitutional guy. He understands the Constitution, and I think he will let the deputies or train the deputies in that in every facet of law enforcement. So him being a sheriff, I know he understands these things, but kind of like Roger, I would have liked him to go into more of the jail, more of the crime stats, things like that. Now let's look at Johnny Rose.
I believe we should have a sheriff that doesn't threaten his employees. He doesn't believe that it's okay for his chief deputy to fail 2 polygraphs. That's not okay. And then he also has a deputy that took blood and human tissue from a crime scene and then was caught doing it. He didn't fire that deputy. Okay, that's not integrity, and that's not okay. We need a sheriff that will do the right thing and take care of business. I've got 7 things that I will do. The sheriff's office is top heavy, and I'll trim that down, put them out on the streets. The deputies some of the deputies, not all, are violating people's civil rights, and I'll put a stop to that. I'm going to make a faith-based approach to the mental health problem. What's wrong with, once the scene is safe, to have partner with churches that come out and after they're trained and tell people about the hope we have in Jesus? What's wrong with that? Everything else has failed, so we might as well try that. I also want a training program the inmates so we can teach them a trade. And maybe they'll learn that trade or skill so when they get out of jail, they won't come back. And then number 5, I want to partner with veterans and protect our schools. What better person to have outside of school than a veteran? If evil shows up to hurt our kids, they know what to do. They'll take care of business. And number 6, I want to simplify the reporting system and make open records more available to people. It's your information, you should have it. Number 7 is constitutional training for the deputies and constitutional training for the citizens. Let's all get on the same page. Let's come up with a system where elected officials get report cards and we network, we have term limits. This is the poster child for term limits right here. Thank you.
Johnny Rose, right off the bat, goes after Roger Deeds in his office on things that I believe Johnny thought were wrong with the sheriff's department. And he talked about a sheriff that doesn't threaten his employees. You know, remember, Johnny used to work at the Hood County Sheriff's Office. He talked about a chief deputy that failed 2 polygraphs. And then he talked about a deputy that took blood and human tissue from a crime scene. And, you know, those are some instances that he believes, and this is from Johnny Rose, it's not from us, but that he believes is wrong with the department as it stands in Hood County. You know, Johnny Rose went over 7 things, everything from, you know, term limits, because, you know, Roger's been there 4 terms plus, and he talked about bringing in, you know, faith-based approach to the mental health issues. He talked about some of the deputies that violate the, you know, people's, the citizens' civil rights, and he's going to handle that. He also talked about the department being top-heavy, and he was going to take and redo that and put most of them back out on the street. So there are some things, and yes, I've seen where Hood County Sheriff's Department is top-heavy, and that is an issue that should have been brought up, and I'm glad it was brought up, because we see that in different departments throughout the nation. We're all, you know, you've been there a long time, you start promoting people, and the more you promote, the less they get off the street, so you don't have the street coverage, and then you have to go to Commissioner's Court and say, hey, we need more, you know, patrol deputies because we can't cover what we have, and that's because, you know, 65% of your workforce or 75 is up top, and your patrol officers that cover the street, you know, you keep taking from patrol and bringing them everywhere else. So I thought that was one of the better points that Johnny Rose brought up. The next question came out is, why are you running, and what do you plan to accomplish while you're in office or when you get elected? And Scott London was up first. Let's listen to Scott.
So the main reason I'm running is because I was seeing some deficiencies, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but I think we could improve the services that we're giving to our community. How would you feel if someone that you knew was to report a crime and the deputy told them that they wouldn't take the report? That actually happened to me. And, you know, I just don't think that's the way that we should be treating our public. I think there's a better way, and I think our deputies should take on the cases, whether they're big or small. And sometimes it's not easy. And so that was kind of what precipitated my first thought of throwing my hat in the ring. And then as things have progressed, we've seen things change in our nation. The last few years have been a bit of a challenge. Right now we have the Biden administration threatening to arrest Texas peace officers and guardsmen for defending our southern border. Wouldn't it be nice to have a sheriff who knows what it looks like to stand up against the federal government? I've done that. And so I'm running for sheriff because I think we need strong leadership. We need the training to know what to do. Because there are a lot of situations out there that we're, quite frankly, ill-equipped for right now. So we need to bring in the experts that know how to deal with things like immigration problems. When you see all these illegal immigrants coming into your community, how do you deal with them? These are things that need to be addressed. And I'm a man that will seek it out. I do, as was alluded to, I've been, for a number of years now, already teaching on the Constitution. When I was sheriff in New Mexico, I brought in a constitutional attorney to train all of the deputies at the Eddy County Sheriff's Office about their oath to the Constitution. And I'll do that again. Thank you, Scott London. Appreciate it.
You know, the first thing that Scott came out with was something that actually happened to him here in Hood County, is he went to report a crime and the Hood County Sheriff deputy wouldn't take it. So, he's seen deficiencies in the department. He works in the constable's office right now in Hood County. And, there are deficiencies and, nobody's going to be perfect, but there are going to be things that you can improve upon as a sheriff. Scott has seen these, and he thinks there's a way to improve these things for the citizens. And having something happen to yourself makes it hit home even more. So he can understand some of these problems that are occurring within the Hood County Sheriff's Department. So that was his first, big answer of, why am I running? The next thing Scott brings up is the Biden administration and the border and him standing up against the federal government, which he did in New Mexico as a sheriff. So he has a history of standing up against the federal government and standing for states' rights and standing for the citizens. So those are two big reasons why he's running and will be effective if he's ever elected sheriff.
I've got 33 years as a Texas peace officer, and I know how this man is. It's time for a change. And I have more experience than both of them. And I've told you the list that I'm going to do when I win elected Hood County Sheriff, because there needs to be changes. We need to address the federal government and the problems. It's a captured operation up there at the federal level. And some people need to go to jail for treason. Okay, so we need to fix that before we can really fix the border problem, the fentanyl problem. It's just a mess. So we have to take action and stand. We've got to stand for God, so He'll stand for us.
So Johnny Rose has answered the question of why you want to run and what will you do basically when you're in office. And right off the bat, he said, I know how this man is, referring to Roger Deeds and how he runs the county. So that was one of the reasons that I guess Johnny decided to run, because he knows how the man is, in his words. And then he stated that it's time for a change, and he brought up the list of 7 things that he said previously in one of the other questions. And he said, if we don't stand for God, who will? So that was his kind of opening of why he's going to do what he's going to do and what he's going to do as sheriff. Now let's go on to Roger Deeds.
Well, they came into office in 2009, like when I was a deputy. We had lights, we had sirens, we had a radio. That was pretty much it. After I came into office, we put mobile data terminals in each vehicle, in-car cameras. They had in-car cameras before. These are digital cameras. We got body cameras. We made technology come up just because of what people can say. Back when I was a deputy, you went before Judge Walton, you raised your hand, and they believed you, what you were saying. But anymore, you got to have, statements and videos and all kinds of things to prove your case in court. So we kept up with that throughout the years. And we got better technology to keep the job going and take care of business. So I'm proud about that. We've come a long ways. Cars, vehicles, the commissioners have stepped up to the plate and bought us vehicles that we could depend on and get us around, and they keep on doing that too. So radio system, we pieced together the radio system over the years. Now we've got a trunking system. So unfortunately, good things cost money, but it's going to keep everybody a whole lot safer being able to communicate inside of mobile homes out in no trail shores or something, and inside big buildings in town, up at the school, and everybody working together on the same page. And that's the way it's always been. That's the way it always should be. Everybody working together to get the job done and protect and serve.
The question was given to Roger Deeds, the incumbent sheriff. What are you most proud of? Basically, what are you most proud of being sheriff? What have you accomplished? And, this is a question set up for the incumbent. This is where the incumbent should crush their opponents. But what does Roger Deeds do? Roger Deeds starts off and says, in 2009, we had lights, radios, and sirens. And then he gets into, but we've gone to the MDTs, the mobile data terminals in the vehicles. We've talked, he's talked about body cameras, cameras in the car, vehicles, radio systems. He's talked about capital projects. He didn't say one thing about crime stats. Once again, you know, we've made this many meth arrests, we've done this for fentanyl, we've done this for marijuana, whatever it may be. The crime stats have gone down. Our thefts have gone down dramatically over the last 3 years, or our robberies have gone down, or our car thefts, or our, you know, stolen vehicles, whatever it may be, burglary of a building, burglary of home. We haven't heard any of that from Roger Deeds when it's time for him to shine on a question that's tailor-made for Roger Deeds, the incumbent sheriff. He talks about, you know, capital projects. Are you most proud of the vehicles? Are you most proud of the radios? To me, as sheriff, when you're there for 16 years, you have your deputies and your employees that you should have been cultivating for 16 years to grow with you and to grow with the department. And not one thing was mentioned about his deputies. Not one thing was mentioned about his team. Not one thing as a sheriff for 16 years that he's proud of was mentioned. That should have been mentioned in stats and teams and deputies and anything like that. It was all physical, you know, capital project items as far as, you know, cars, lights, sirens, whatever it may be. So he took that question and, in my opinion, failed. He had a chance to knock it out of the park. But once again, you know, I like Roger. Everybody likes Roger. That doesn't mean he's going to be the best sheriff for Hood County. So let's move on to the next question. The next question had to do with the border, and all three candidates pretty much were on the same page about the border. They answered it a little bit differently for each. Johnny Rose supported Abbott's decision on the border to, you know, shut it down at the park, and so did Roger Deeds. But Scott London had a little bit more to that question, and he said, "Look, the Texas Constitution, the 10th Amendment, we can do that. We have the right as, you know, a sovereign state to do that. We have the right through the, you know, federal Constitution, the Texas Constitution." So he opened it up a little bit more on the Constitution side of it, and yes, we can do it, and how we can do it. But everybody pretty much had the same answer. And I would like to go into some things, though, that Sheriff Deeds did say. You know, when the border question was asked, and he's the sheriff, so he should know these details, and these details are coming from, he said years and years ago, they used to have 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 illegal aliens in jail a month. Now they have 15 or 20 illegal aliens in jail a month. And it's going to get more and more. It could get 30, 40. Who knows how high this could go with the amount of people that are illegal aliens that are coming through our border. So let's say there's 20 a month illegal aliens in our jail. At $60 a day for each illegal alien, that's $1,200 that we're paying a day to house them. If you look at monthly, that's $36,000 a month. Yearly, that's $432,000 a month to have 20 illegals in there every month. So that's a big number. And we're going to have to be paying for that. And that goes to the jail size. That goes to, why don't we send these back to the state so they can deport them? So we're going to have to look at those things moving forward. So I would like another question on, you know, how they're going to handle that, how they're going to get with the state representatives, senators, what they're going to do, talk to Abbott maybe, and see how we're going to handle this border crisis. But once again, nothing was brought up. Roger Deeds should, in my opinion, be on top of this, and he should be at least talking to the Commissioner's Court on how much the illegal aliens are costing Hood County and what we're going to do about it in the future. As we wrap this up with the closing on what each candidate said, I do want to say go look at the video because they had more questions that had to do with who their major donor was, the January 6th, was it an insurrection, was it not an insurrection, and also Second Amendment issues. But let's go into the closing, and they started with Roger Deeds.
You've heard a lot of different information up here. I've been here serving as your sheriff for all these years. I worked hard to get here where I'm at. And it's a 7-day-a-week job, nights and weekends, everything included, so I am willing to keep on doing what I'm doing, and I want to earn your trust. I want to do what you need me to do, but also go by the law and the Constitution, and we're going to keep working hard to keep Hood County safe and all the citizens. So vote for Roger Deeds next election.
As the incumbent, Roger had another shot here to just hit it all at the ballpark and take it home in his closing statement. And he said, look, it's a 7-day-a-week, 7 nights, basically saying it's 24/7 job. And I get that. And not that the man doesn't work, because I believe he really does. We're talking about knowing the capacity of the issues, knowing what's going on with the statistics, knowing what's going on with the jail. And, to keep saying, hey, for the safety of the citizens of Hood County, I get it. To serve and protect, I get it. But you've got to go beyond the safety of the citizens. We ought to know, why are the citizens safe? How are the citizens safe? Show me that robberies are down. Show me that thefts are down. Show me that burglaries of buildings are down. Show me that all these crimes are down or staying level with the population increase. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about your jail, which is the major function. You had an opportunity there to expand on all those points that could just, put you over the top, but you didn't. It was all safety of the citizens and to, serve and protect. But we get that. But please, next forum, if you're in one, Roger, please talk to the citizens on how they're safe, how you're protecting them, where they stand. That's what we want to hear. Now let's move on to Scott London.
Well, I was a little disappointed we didn't get to ask the question about the platform planks, because 1 through 12 is kind of the core values of the Republican Party, so I'm going to give this as bonus material. My favorite is 13 because it talks about our oaths to the Constitution. And so if anybody has followed me for the last 10 years, that is very near and dear to me. But I'm also the guy that's going to make sure that we start seeing an increase in our case closure rates. We will look into our cold case homicides, see if there's solvability that we can actually get some of those cleared out. And we will hold our staff accountable to make sure that, one, that you're properly served, and that they can have some pride and satisfaction in their job, that they might be proud to call themselves Hood County Sheriff's deputies. And I want a community that can be proud and confident to stand behind their sheriff. I'm Scott London, Hood County Sheriff.
Scott, not being the incumbent sheriff, in my opinion, knocked it out of the park. Now, he doesn't have the stats. He doesn't have, the stats of the jail. He doesn't have the stats of thefts, things like that, because they weren't brought out. But he said he wants to increase the closure rate of some of the things going on in, whatever it may be, thefts, burglaries. So there's a plus for you. All right. He wants to look into cold case homicide. He wants to hold the staff accountable for serving and protecting the citizens. There you go again, serve and protect. But he wants to hold them accountable, which is very good, which means more training. And then he ended up, which, I really liked, is he said he wants to basically make the Hood County Sheriff's Office someplace that the deputies can be proud of. And that's that morale part of it. That's, what I'm talking about, where Sheriff Roger Deeds mentioned nothing but capital expenses, cars, radios, things like that, lights, sirens. Nothing about his team, nothing about the deputies, where now Scott London's shift to, I want to make Hood County proud of their Hood County Sheriff's Office. I want to make the deputies proud of their Hood County Sheriff's Office. And that goes towards morale. And when we talk about morale, there's, people will leave the sheriff's department. They'll leave county offices, no matter where it is, to get better jobs, better pay. But it's not always about better pay for people. If you have the morale and you have a good department, people are going to stay and they're going to promote up through the ranks, but you're not going to get a top-heavy department. So I think, Scott London had a very good closing statement to go along or to offset what Roger basically didn't have. Let's look at Johnny Rose.
About the Republican platform, I say they should work a lot harder and suck a lot less. And that's what I say about the Republicans. They need to try harder and do better, be more conservative. But anyway, in closing, I know what the problems are down at the sheriff's office, and I know I've got solutions for them. And if you want a Romans 13 sheriff, you want a we the people sheriff, you want a constitutional sheriff, vote for me. I'm Johnny Rose. Thank you.
Johnny Rose had the quote of the night, and it was kind of funny. And he was talking about the Republican Party platform, and he said they should work a lot harder and suck a lot less. And he was talking about Republicans, moving towards that Republican Party platform, working for that platform. And, in some way, I kind of agree with Johnny on this, because we have Republicans that actually follow the platform, but then you have your pseudo-Republicans, your trans-Republicans, whatever you want to call them, that don't follow the platform but say they're Republicans. So, aside kind of little levity, that was probably, a quote of the night. But Johnny stated he knows what the problems are down at the sheriff's office. Now, he did work there for a while, but he's also got the solutions. And he mentioned the solutions earlier in his opening statement with the seven, or one of the questions they had with the seven things he wanted to do when he gets into office. Once again, folks, go look, watch a video for yourself. Talk to these individual candidates yourself. Talk to Johnny Rose, Scott London, and Sheriff Deeds yourself, and ask them questions. Ask them questions beyond what was at the forum, because we need to know as citizens who the best sheriff moving forward, going into the future as Hood County continues to grow. We're going to need a sheriff that's able to talk to us about stats, talk to us about what's going on a federal level, not saying, hey, I don't really pay attention a lot to what's going on. Well, as a Hood County sheriff and the chief law enforcement officer of the county, you need to start paying attention, and you should already be paying attention. And that goes for all three candidates. So let's look and see what each one's about. Please call them, talk to them, go by, do whatever you need to do to find out who you're going to vote for Hood County Sheriff. Because now more than ever, we need a constitutional sheriff that's going to worry about Hood County and its effects on the state and national level, and with the illegal immigration problem that we have going on and the growth of Hood County. So let's make sure we get somebody that's professional moving forward for Hood County.